So the main question when you're thinking about jumping into a new RPG system, is this something that you would enjoy running? Is this a gaming system both in terms of narrative, but also the mechanics, the rules that intrigues you? And it doesn't have to be 100 on both sides, but it has to have some bite. It has to have some momentum behind it. I also like to ask, is this a game I would enjoy playing in as a player? Even if I'm going to be the GM, am I going to enjoy playing it? Because if I can enjoy playing it as a GM, I can bring that passion to it for my players. And then we'll go out and we'll find some players and we'll kind of look and make it happen. So initially with Invisible Sun, a very, very unique role-playing game, very ambitious, but radically different than the games that I usually play, the games that I regularly play, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, Dungeons & Dragons, Alien the RPG, even systems like Dark Heresy, which is very, very focused in the culture and the community, or games like Rolemaster. Invisible Sun has a lot of things that it's a role-playing game, but is it a role-playing game? Because it tends to break a lot on the checklist of what a role-playing game is. So the first thing that attracted me to it was this idea of magic being central to the game. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers. My goal in pushing out this vlog is to share with you my experiences journeying through the Invisible Sun as a GM. But this is why it's misleading. This is what is so misleading. There really isn't a GM. There really are not players in the game. There's not this divide of both. Everyone's playing the game, and that was the initial attraction to it, although I didn't know it at the time. So the first way in was, I see this giant cube, the cube of secrets. What's in there? It's a role-playing game. You look at some pictures, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of props, it looks like a mystery box, but I find out magic is prominent. And if you've been following my channel or you've sat at my table, you know I love magic. I love the manipulation of magic. If we're going AD&D, I'm playing a magic user. I'm usually a wizard or a sorcerer. If not, I will play a monk, but they kind of have magic. They got the key flowing through them. I love the Force, all those types of incarnations. If it's a magic-based game, I'm in. Invisible Sun is pure magic. It's this magical realm, this magical world. Thoughts and magic is real. Okay, I'm intrigued. Second, it's this alternate world. It's this idea that the world as it exists right now, you are waking up. What we're doing right now, what you're listening to, what you're existing in, is the dream. The Invisible Sun is the real world. So you wake up. You wake up in the Invisible Sun world, and you have to figure out what's going on. You have to figure out where you are. And it's an open world role-playing game in that there's no immediate adventure. There's no immediate quest. The king has not summoned you to go on a quest. Character development is key in that you're creating a character, and there's usual attributes, abilities, and spells that you're going to select. But then you come up with a backstory. You come up with a backstory, a reason for being in the Invisible Sun. And this could be something that you've created. This could be something that you want to do. This could be something that you aspire to become. I mean, there's a lot of analysis in creating a character backstory. And it doesn't have to be like 10 pages, paragraph or two. The first session is actually you creating your dwelling and your backstory. And the GM is going to utilize that real time to actually create the adventure. So this was intriguing in that we've got a game with magic. We've got a rule system and set that is a little bit out of the normal in that, for me, I tend to be very old school. Pen and paper, here we go. Sometimes, being a wargamer, those of you who also know Wargamer Fritz, I will pull in miniatures and Dwarven Forge. I mean, that happens. I can't get rid of my wargaming DNA. But role-playing, I tend to be very simplistic. But the Invisible Sun makes use of some amazing artwork, some amazing props, some amazing pieces. You don't have to use them, but they're there, that it creates a lot of intrigue, because so much of any role-playing game is, of course, learning the system and figuring out. And Invisible Sun, you don't know anything as a player. But through the props, through the interaction of the cards, through the interaction of the maps, intuitively you learn the rules. You figure it out as you go. So it was very, very intriguing to jump in. And the mechanics of it, again, this idea of no adventure. I sit down, I have nothing planned for Invisible Sun, which was hard the first couple of games that we played with my 3 groups that I'm running. This idea that, where are my notes? Where's my dungeon maps? What am I going to do? You know, as a GM, kind of a freak out panic moment where I'm sitting here like, okay, a 4 or 5 hour game, I've got nothing prepared. What am I going to do? But the mechanics allow you to create on the fly in the moment, based on what the characters do, based on what they give you, based on their backstories, ever evolving, ever narrative, and the true interaction between the GM and the players. Those lines blur where I'm a player, I'm the GM, I'm the player, but I'm also the facilitator of it. Very ambitious, very unique, and the rules and the flow of the narrative being magic-based, I don't think this system, you know, if you strip the system out, import it into something else, I don't think it could readily exist in another type of game, say like Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think it could. And that uniqueness is what intrigued me. Now, with this giant cube, of course, the question is, this is not an elitist statement. This is not a mainstream role-playing game. This is not a hack and slash role-playing game, although there are encounters, and the players might take it based on their characters to a very combat-oriented direction, and you have spells that you can utilize. But ultimately, it requires the type of player that's intrigued in creating as opposed to dominating. It's the type of player that's intrigued of a story and has the ability on the fly to solve problems and think about the evolution of their character, as opposed to being guided by stat blocks and very binary decisions, kick the door down or don't. And I love Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I do. I regularly play it. But it's a completely, radically different type of game.